The mining station Kepler 442 hung like a metallic tumor against the rust-colored asteroid, its drilling arms working tirelessly to extract precious metals from the rock's core. Lieutenant Sarah Chun watched the operation through the observation deck's reinforced windows, her coffee growing cold in her hands. 3 months into her assignment as the station's security liaison, she had grown accustomed to the monotonous rhythm of industrial machinery and the distant hum of life support systems. What she hadn't grown accustomed to was the sight that now dominated the asteroid field beyond. The Krillian dreadnought stretched across her field of vision like a dark mountain range, its obsidian hull reflecting the pale light of a nearby star. Sarah had seen capital ships before, but nothing compared to the sheer magnitude of this vessel. It was easily 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapon arrays that could reduce entire planets to cosmic dust. The ship had arrived 2 days ago without warning, taking position just outside the neutral zone that separated human and Krillian space. Still staring at our new neighbor, Chief Engineer Martinez approached, carrying his own steaming cup. The graying man had been working deep space mining operations for over 20 years, and his weathered face showed every one of them. Hard not to, Sarah replied, not taking her eyes off the massive ship. Any word from command about their intentions? Martinez shook his head. Radio silence on all channels. The Krillians aren't exactly known for their communication skills. He paused, studying Sarah's tense posture. You worried they're here to cause trouble? Sarah considered the question. The Krillian Empire had been humanity's most formidable neighbor since first contact 15 years ago. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and chitinous exoskeletons, they were natural warriors who had conquered dozens of systems before encountering human space. The current ceasefire was fragile at best, maintained more through mutual respect for each other's military capabilities than any genuine desire for peace. I'm worried about what happens when 2 apex predator species get too close to each other, she finally answered. Her comm unit chirped, interrupting their conversation. The voice of Commander Walsh, the station's commanding officer, crackled through the speaker. All senior staff to the command center immediately. We got incoming. Sarah and Martinez exchanged glances before hurrying through the station's narrow corridors. The command center was already buzzing with activity when they arrived. Technicians hunched over their displays, while officers clustered around the main tactical screen. Commander Walsh, a stern woman in her 50s, stood at the center of it all. What's the situation? Sarah asked, taking her position at the security console. Single ship launched from the dreadnought 20 minutes ago, Walsh replied, pointing at the tactical display. It's requesting permission to dock. Sarah's eyebrows shot up. A Krillian ship wants to dock here? That's unprecedented. That's what I thought too, Walsh said grimly. But it gets stranger. The transmission was in perfect standard human, and they're specifically requesting to speak with our warrior protector. She looked directly at Sarah. That would be you, Lieutenant. The weight of every gaze in the room settled on Sarah's shoulders. As the station security chief, she was technically the closest thing they had to a military commander, but the idea that the Krillians would single her out was unsettling. Any indication of their intentions? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. None. The ship is small, maybe a shuttle or personal transport. Minimal weapons. Whatever they want, they're not planning to fight their way to it. Sarah studied the tactical readout. The approaching vessel was indeed tiny compared to its mother ship, roughly the size of a human courier craft. Still, with the Krillians, size could be deceiving. Their technology was at least on par with humanity's, and in some areas, notably shield and weapon systems, they were clearly superior. Recommendations? Walsh asked the room. We could redirect them to the nearest diplomatic station, suggested Dr. Reeves, the station's chief scientist. This is hardly the place for first contact protocols. Or we could tell them to go back where they came from, muttered Martinez. Nothing good ever comes from unannounced visitors. Sarah found herself studying the tactical display more closely. Something about this situation didn't feel like a military threat. If the Krillians wanted to cause problems, they wouldn't need a dock. That dreadnought could wipe out the entire mining operation from its current position. I say we let them dock, she said finally, surprised by her own words. But under strict security protocols. Full environmental suits for any personnel in the docking bay, and I want armed guards at every access point. Walsh nodded slowly. Agreed. But, Lieutenant, you're not meeting with them alone. I want Dr. Reeves present as a witness, and a full security team on standby. Understood, Commander. The next hour passed in a blur of preparation. Sarah suited up in her military-grade environmental gear, checking and rechecking her sidearm. The Krillian shuttle had docked at Base 7, and, according to the sensors, it contained only 2 life forms. Still, with Krillians, 2 could be more than enough to cause serious problems. Dr. Reeves met her at the airlock, his nervous energy evident even through his bulky suit. "I've been studying Krillian cultural protocols," he said over the comm. "Physical contact is considered either a challenge or a sign of deep respect, depending on the context. Also, direct eye contact can be interpreted as aggressive behavior unless you're of equal rank." "Wonderful," Sarah muttered. "Any other social landmines I should know about?" "Their concept of honor is paramount. Showing fear or weakness is worse than death to them. And whatever you do, don't comment on their size or physical appearance. It's considered either an insult or a mating display, depending on the phrasing." Sarah took a deep breath as they approached the docking bay. Through the observation window, she could see the Krillian shuttle. It was sleek and angular, constructed from the same dark material as the dreadnought. Strange symbols were etched along its hull, glowing with a faint blue light. The airlock cycled open with a soft hiss, and Sarah got her first look at a living Krillian. The creature that emerged was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, its 4 arms moved with fluid grace as it navigated the airlock. The chitinous exoskeleton covering its body was deep black with veins of metallic blue running through it like circuit patterns. Its head was elongated, with large compound eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Most striking were the intricate patterns carved into its exoskeleton, which Sarah recognized as marking of extremely high rank. The second Krillian was smaller, but still imposing, bearing similar markings but fewer in number. Both wore what appeared to be ceremonial armor rather than standard military gear. The larger Krillian stepped forward and, to Sarah's amazement, bowed slightly. When it spoke, its voice was deep and resonant, the words flowing through a translation device at its throat. "I am Warsinger Zethkar of the 2nd Battle Fleet. I seek audience with the human warrior protector of this station." The creature's large eyes fixed on Sarah. "You bear the scent of combat and the weight of command. Are you the one I seek?" Sarah felt her heart hammering in her chest, but she forced herself to stand straighter. "I am Lieutenant Sarah Chun, Chief Security Officer of Mining Station Kepler, 442. I speak for this facility in all matters of defense and protection." The Warsinger's head tilted slightly, and Sarah caught what might have been approval in its alien features. "Good. You do not cower or make false claims of authority. I am here to speak of honor and alliance." Dr. Reeves shifted nervously beside her, but Sarah kept her focus on the towering alien. "What kind of alliance?" "The kind forged in necessity and tempered by mutual respect." Zethkar gestured with one of its lower arms toward the observation windows. "Your species and mine circle each other like wary predators, neither willing to show weakness, neither able to achieve true victory. This serves no one." "The current ceasefire has kept the peace for 3 years," Sarah pointed out. "Peace?" The Warsinger's mandibles clicked in what Sarah was beginning to recognize as amusement. "Human warrior, there is no peace between apex hunters. There's only the pause before the next strike. Unless what? Unless honor bonds are forged. Unless warriors recognize warriors and strength acknowledges strength." Zethkar took another step forward, and Sarah had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "I have studied your species' military records. I have seen the recordings of human warriors in combat. Your kind fights with a fury that rivals our own, and shows courage that would make our greatest champions proud." Sarah felt a strange mix of pride and unease. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I believe our species are more alike than different. Because I believe that warriors who respect each other need not be enemies." The Warsinger paused, and when it continued, its voice carried a weight that made the air itself seem heavier. "Because I am dying, and I would not see my life's work destroyed by those who come after me." The statement hit Sarah like a physical blow. She glanced at Dr. Reeves, who looked equally stunned. "I'm sorry, I don't understand." Zethkar's secondary arms moved to touch certain patterns on its exoskeleton, and Sarah realized they weren't decorative markings at all. They were scars, carefully preserved and highlighted with precious metals. These mark the battles I have fought, the victories I have won, the enemies I have defeated with honor. But they also mark the toll such a life takes on the body. My warrior cycle is ending. Soon, another will take my place as war singer. And you're concerned about your replacement? Sarah asked, beginning to understand. War singer Thacmore believes strength comes only through conquest. He sees your species as weak because you value individual life over military glory. He does not understand that this apparent weakness is actually your greatest strength. The alien's eyes seem to pierce right through her. When I die, he will push for renewed hostilities, unless an alternative path is shown. Dr. Reeves finally found his voice. What exactly are you proposing? A warrior bond between our species, a recognition of mutual strength and honor that would make war unnecessary. Zethkar turned back to Sarah. But such a bond can only be forged between warriors of equal standing. I cannot create it with your politicians or diplomats. It must be forged with one who has faced death in defense of their people. Sarah felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. And you think I'm that warrior? I have studied your record, Lieutenant Shun. The defense of Proxima Station against the hegemony raiders. The evacuation of New Shanghai during the solar storm crisis. The standoff with the pirate fleet at Taosai. Each achievement was recited with the precision of a military historian. You have proven yourself in combat and in protection of the innocent. In Krillian culture, you would already be considered a war singer yourself. The comparison was overwhelming. Sarah had never thought of herself as anything more than a soldier doing her job. To be compared to what was essentially an alien general was both flattering and terrifying. What would this warrior bond entail? She asked carefully. Ritual combat, fought with honor and witnessed by both our peoples. Not to the death, but to first blood or yield. The one who emerges victorious would speak for both species in matters of honor and conflict. Zethkar's mandibles clicked again. Of course, the outcome matters less than the act itself. The bond is forged in the fighting, not in the winning. Sarah's mind raced. The political implications were staggering. Such an event would be unprecedented in human-Krillian relations. It could either forge a new era of cooperation or provide an excuse for the war hawks on both sides to push for renewed hostilities. I would need to consult with my superiors, she said finally. Of course. But know this, human warrior, time grows short. My health fails more each day, and Thacmore's influence grows stronger. If this bond is to be forged, it must be soon. The war singer turned to go, then paused. There is one more thing you should know. In proposing this bond, I risk my own honor and position. If my people see this as weakness or betrayal, I will face exile or death. I make this offer not from desperation, but from hope. Hope that our species might find a better path than endless conflict. As the two Krillians departed, Sarah found herself staring after them long after the airlock had sealed. Dr. Reeves was talking rapidly into his communicator, no doubt reporting everything to Commander Walsh, but his words faded into background noise. She was being asked to fight an alien warrior in single combat, with the future of human-Krillian relations hanging in the balance. The rational part of her mind screamed that this was insane, that she should recommend referring the matter to proper diplomatic channels and trained negotiators. But another part of her, the part that had kept her alive through 3 major engagements and countless smaller conflicts, recognized something in the war singer's proposal. It wasn't just about politics or strategy. It was about respect, warrior to warrior, and the understanding that sometimes the simplest solutions were the most profound. Sarah Chun had spent her entire adult life protecting human interests, often at great personal risk. Now she was being asked to take that protection to a level she had never imagined. The question was whether she had the courage to accept. The emergency session of the Terran Defense Council was unlike anything Sarah had ever witnessed. Holographic displays showed the faces of admirals, generals, and civilian leaders from across human space, all focused on the small conference room aboard mining station Kepler 442. The weight of their collective attention made the air feel thick and oppressive. Admiral Harrison, the Supreme Commander of the Terran Defense Force, leaned forward in his chair on Earth. His weathered face carried the stress of managing humanity's military forces across dozens of star systems. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, Lieutenant Shun. A Krillian war singer has proposed single combat to establish some sort of friendship treaty. A warrior bond, sir, Sarah corrected carefully. According to my research into Krillian culture, it's a sacred relationship between fighters of equal standing that transcends species or political boundaries. General Morrison from the Centauri command scoffed. It sounds like elaborate alien nonsense to me. How do we know this isn't some kind of trap? Dr. Elena Vasquez, the lead xenoanthropologist for the Defense Council, spoke up from her office on Luna Base. Actually, General, the concept of warrior bonds is well documented in Krillian society. They consider such bonds to be among the most sacred relationships possible. Breaking one is punishable by exile or death. Which brings us to the obvious question, Admiral Harrison said grimly. Why would Lieutenant Chun be the one to form this bond? We have trained diplomats, professional negotiators, people who specialize in first contact situations. Sarah had been dreading this question, but she forced herself to answer honestly. Because I'm the only one available who meets their criteria, sir. The war singer was very specific. The bond can only be forged between warriors who have proven themselves in actual combat. Most of our diplomats, with all due respect, lack that experience. And you have it in spades, muttered Commander Walsh, who was sitting beside Sarah in the station's conference room. 3 major engagements, 2 civilian evacuations under fire, and a decorated service record going back 8 years. President Chun of the Colonial Assembly spoke for the first time, her voice carrying across the subspace link with crystalline clarity. I'm more concerned about the precedent this would set. If we agree to settle disputes through single combat, what message does that send to other species? To our own people? With respect, Madam President, Sarah said, we're not talking about settling disputes. This is about establishing a foundation for future diplomacy. The war singer made it clear that the outcome of the combat matters less than the act itself. It's a symbolic gesture that could get you killed, Admiral Harrison pointed out bluntly. These Krillians are natural warriors, Lieutenant. They're stronger, faster, and have 4 arms tier 2. Even if this isn't meant to be a fight to the death, accidents happen. Sarah had been thinking about this very issue since the war singer's departure. The physical differences between humans and Krillians were significant, but not insurmountable. Sir, I've been reviewing combat footage from the border conflicts. While Krillians are physically superior in terms of raw strength and speed, they rely heavily on that advantage. Their fighting style tends to be direct and aggressive. Humans have historically done well against superior opponents by using tactics, adaptability, and endurance. General Morrison's expression softened slightly. You're talking about asymmetric warfare principles. But this isn't a battlefield, Lieutenant. It's single combat in what sounds like a controlled environment. Actually, that might work to my advantage, Sarah replied. In a controlled environment, I can't be overwhelmed by superior numbers or firepower. It comes down to individual skill and strategy. Dr. Vasquez pulled up a holographic display showing detailed anatomical data on Krillian physiology. There are some factors working in Lieutenant Chen's favor. Krillians have excellent strength and speed, but their endurance is actually somewhat limited. Their exoskeletons provide natural armor, but they also restrict flexibility. And their 4 arms, while advantageous for multitasking, can actually create coordination issues in close combat if their opponent knows how to exploit it. The discussion continued for another hour, covering everything from political ramifications to military strategy. Sarah found herself answering increasingly technical questions about Krillian combat doctrine, human military training, and the specific conditions the war singer had proposed for the warrior bond ceremony. Finally, Admiral Harrison called for a recess to allow the council members to consult with their respective governments. Sarah was left sitting in the suddenly quiet conference room with Commander Walsh, feeling the weight of the universe pressing down on her shoulders. You don't have to do this, Walsh said quietly. Nobody would blame you for declining. This is way beyond anything in your job description. Isn't it, though? Sarah replied, staring at her hands. I swore an oath to protect human interests against all threats. This might be the best chance we get to prevent a war that could cost millions of lives. Or might be the spark that starts that war anyway. Politics is complicated, Lieutenant. Good intentions don't always lead to good outcomes. Before Sarah could respond, her comm unit chirped with an incoming message. The identifier showed it was from the Krillian shuttle, which was still docked at Base 7. She accepted the transmission, and Warsinger Zethkar's translated voice filled the room. Human warrior Chun, I hope I do not disturb your deliberations, but I felt compelled to share additional information that may affect your decision. Go ahead, War Singer, Sarah replied, switching to the external comm system so Commander Walsh could hear both sides of the conversation. I have received word from the Fleet Command that War Singer Thakmore has learned of my proposal. He is displeased. He considers it a sign of weakness and has demanded that I return immediately to face judgment for my actions. Sarah's blood went cold. Are you in danger? Not immediate danger, no. My rank and service record afford me certain protections. But my time grows shorter than I had hoped. If this warrior bond is to be forged, it must be within the next planetary rotation. After that, I will be compelled to return to face Thakmore's challenge to my authority. Commander Walsh leaned forward. What happens if you're forced to return before the ceremony? Then my influence dies with me, and Thakmore will have free rein to pursue his vision of conquest. He has been gathering support among the younger war singers, those who have known only victory and believe strength can only be proven through domination of others. The transmission crackled with static for a moment before Zethkar continued. There is something else you should know. Thakmore has been monitoring our communications. He knows of this human mining station and its strategic value. If I am discredited and removed from command, this installation will likely be his first target when hostilities resume. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. The mining station processed rare elements essential for manufacturing faster-than-light drive components. Its destruction would cripple human expansion efforts and provide the Krillians with a significant strategic advantage. How many people would he send? She asked. For a target this size? Perhaps 3 battleships and their escort squadrons. Your defensive platforms would not last long against such a force. Sarah looked at Commander Walsh, whose face had gone pale. The station's defensive capabilities were designed to deter raiders and pirates, not a full military assault by one of the galaxy's most advanced species. The comm crackled again as Zethkar's voice returned. I do not share this information to pressure you, human warrior. You deserve to know the full consequences of whatever decision you make. If you choose to reject my proposal, I will understand and harbor no resentment. But know that the path of aggression grows stronger with each passing moment. The transmission ended, leaving Sarah and Commander Walsh in heavy silence. After several minutes, Walsh spoke first. Well, that changes things considerably. Yes, it does, Sarah agreed grimly. If I fight and lose, the worst-case scenario is that I'm injured or killed. If I don't fight at all, the worst-case scenario is that this entire station gets wiped out and human-Krillian relations collapse into open warfare. Put like that, it's not much of a choice, is it? Before Sarah could respond, the emergency council session resumed. Admiral Harrison's face appeared on the main display, along with the other senior officials. His expression was grim. Lieutenant Chun, we've been in contact with our intelligence assets in Krillian space. They've confirmed that Warsinger Thakmore has indeed been building a coalition of aggressive factions within their military hierarchy. Our analysts believe he's planning to use any excuse to restart hostilities, and your station's strategic value makes it a prime target. President Chin's image flickered as her connection stabilized. Given these new developments, the Colonial Assembly has voted to authorize this warrior bond ceremony, with certain conditions. Sarah felt her heart rate spike. What conditions, Madam President? First, the combat will be conducted under strict medical supervision. We want both human and Krillian medical teams present. Second, the entire ceremony will be recorded and broadcast to both species as evidence of our commitment to peaceful relations. Third, you'll have access to whatever equipment and training you need to maximize your chances of success. General Morrison added, we're also positioning a small fleet just outside the system in case this goes badly, and we need to evacuate the station quickly. There's one more thing, Admiral Harrison said. We've received additional intelligence about Krillian combat traditions. Apparently, the Warrior Bond ceremony isn't just about the fight itself. There are ritual elements that precede the combat, including what they call the sharing of scars, a formal recounting of each warrior's greatest achievements and defeats. Dr. Vasquez pulled up more cultural data. This is actually crucial, Lieutenant. How you present your military history could be as important as how well you fight. Krillians respect courage and sacrifice above all else. They need to see that you've faced real danger and real loss in service of your people. Sarah thought about her service record, about the friends she'd lost and the impossible situations she'd survived. She'd never thought of herself as particularly heroic, but she was beginning to understand that heroism might be a matter of perspective. "How much time do I have to prepare?" she asked. "Warsinger Zethkar has requested that the ceremony take place in 18 hours, Admiral Harrison replied. "That gives us enough time to get a medical team to your location and set up the recording equipment. It also gives you time to prepare mentally and physically for what's ahead." Commander Walsh stood up. "I'll clear out Cargo Bay 3. It's the largest open space on the station, and we can modify the artificial gravity to accommodate both species' preferences." "I'll need to speak with the Warsinger about the specific rules of engagement," Sarah said. "What weapons are allowed, what constitutes victory, how the ritual elements will proceed." "Agreed," Admiral Harrison said. "But, Lieutenant, I want you to understand something. This is completely unprecedented. We're asking you to risk your life on the basis of an alien cultural tradition we barely understand, in the hopes of preventing a war that might happen anyway. If you have any doubts, any reservations at all, now is the time to voice them." Sarah stood up and looked around the conference room at the faces watching her through the holographic displays. These were some of the most powerful and influential people in human space, and they were all waiting for her decision. The weight of responsibility was crushing, but underneath it, she felt something else. A sense of rightness, as if this moment had been inevitable from the day she first put on a military uniform. "I don't have any doubts, sir," she said finally. "This is what I signed up for when I took my oath, to protect and defend human interests against all threats. If I can prevent a war by fighting one alien warrior, then that's what I'll do." "Very well," Admiral Harrison said. "The authorization is official. Godspeed, Lieutenant Chun, and may the best warrior win." As the holographic displays flickered out, Sarah found herself alone with Commander Walsh once again. The older woman was looking at her with an expression of worry and admiration. "You realize you're completely insane, right?" Walsh said finally. "Probably," Sarah agreed. "But it's the right kind of insane." The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation. The medical team arrived aboard a fast courier ship, along with recording equipment and a small diplomatic contingent led by Ambassador Rodriguez. The cargo bay was transformed into an arena, with medical stations at both ends and camera arrays positioned for optimal coverage. Sarah spent time reviewing everything humanity knew about Krillian combat techniques, studying recordings from the border conflicts, and analyzing the movements and tactics of their warriors. She also worked with Dr. Vasquez to prepare her presentation for the ritual sharing of scars, crafting a narrative that would resonate with Krillian concepts of honor and sacrifice. Most importantly, she spent time alone, preparing mentally for what was to come. She thought about her parents, who had died in a transport accident when she was 16. She thought about her military training, the friends she'd lost in combat, and the people she'd saved. She thought about the crew of Mining Station Kepler 442, who were counting on her to protect them from threats they couldn't even imagine. When Warsinger Zethkar arrived in the cargo bay for the ceremony, Sarah was ready. The alien warrior had changed into elaborate ceremonial armor that gleamed with metallic inscriptions, and its movements carried the weight of ancient tradition. It was time to forge a bond between two species of warriors, or die trying. The cargo bay had been transformed into something that resembled an ancient Colosseum. The standard industrial lighting had been replaced with warmer, more ceremonial illumination that cast dramatic shadows across the cleared space. Recording devices positioned at strategic points would capture every moment for both species to witness. Medical stations flanked both ends of the makeshift arena, staffed by the best trauma specialist humanity could deploy on short notice. Sarah stood at one end of the space, wearing lightweight combat armor that had been specifically modified for this encounter. The armor was ceremonial as much as functional, decorated with the insignia of her rank and service medals that told the story of her military career. Her weapon of choice, a monomolecular blade traditional to human military honor duels, hung at her side. At the opposite end, Warsinger Zethkar cut an imposing figure in its ancestral battle gear. The elaborate armor seemed to flow like liquid metal over its massive frame, and ancient symbols carved into the material told their own story of countless victories and hard-won wisdom. The Warsinger carried two curved blades, one in each of its primary hands, their edges gleaming with the same blue luminescence that marked Krillian technology. Between them stood Ambassador Rodriguez and the Krillian cultural attaché who had accompanied Zethkar. They would serve as witnesses and interpreters for the ritual elements of the ceremony. Behind them, Commander Walsh and other senior staff watched with barely concealed anxiety. Dr. Vasquez spoke quietly into her recorder, documenting every detail for future xenoanthropological study. The participants are taking their positions for what the Krillians call Thakmor Day, literally translated as the binding of blade souls. This ceremony has roots dating back thousands of years in Krillian culture, but has never before been performed between members of different species. The war singer began the ritual by raising all four arms in a gesture of formal recognition. When it spoke, its translated voice carried the weight of ancient tradition. Let all who witness understand the gravity of this moment. Two warriors of different blood, but equal honor stand ready to forge a bond that transcends the boundaries of species and empire. Let the telling of scars begin, so that all may know the worth of those who seek this binding. Zethkar stepped forward into the center of the arena. I am Warsinger Zethkar, descendant of the Third Nest, bearer of 143 victory scars, survivor of 32 great battles. The alien's voice grew stronger as it continued. I have stood against the hegemony fleets at the Battle of Seven Suns, where my ship was the only survivor of a squadron of 12. I have led the siege of Fortress Corvain, where 3,000 of the enemy fell before my blade. I have faced the void hunters in the depths of dead space, and returned to tell the tale. The Warsinger's lower arms moved to touch specific scars on its exoskeleton as it spoke, each mark representing a story of violence and survival. But I have also known defeat. I have watched comrades fall while I lived. I have made decisions that saved thousands and doomed hundreds. I carry the weight of every life lost under my command, and I honor them by continuing to serve. Sarah felt the solemnity of the moment settling around her like a heavy cloak. This wasn't just a recounting of military achievements. It was a baring of the soul, an acknowledgement of the terrible burdens that came with the warrior's path. When Zethkar finished, all eyes turned to Sarah. She stepped forward, her heart hammering but her voice steady. She had practiced this moment, but the reality of standing before an alien warrior and sharing her deepest struggles was more intense than any simulation. I am Lieutenant Sarah Chun, daughter of Luna Colony, defender of human space, bearer of scars both visible and hidden. She paused, gathering her courage. I have stood against overwhelming odds at Proxima Station, where 47 raiders fell to our defense grid while I coordinated the evacuation of 3,000 civilians. I have faced the solar storm at New Shanghai, racing against time and radiation to save a colony ship with 16,000 souls aboard. I have stared down pirate fleets at Tau Ceti with nothing but bluff and determination because retreat was not an option. Her voice grew stronger as she continued. But I have also failed. I have lost good soldiers under my command. I have been forced to make choices that saved some and doomed others. I carry the names of 23 men and women who died following my orders, and I honor them by never forgetting that leadership means accepting responsibility for both victory and defeat. The Warsinger's compound eyes seemed to study her with new intensity. When she finished, it stepped forward and performed what Sarah recognized as a ritual bow of respect. Your scars run deep, human warrior. You understand the price of command and the weight of duty. You are worthy to stand in this circle. Ambassador Rodriguez stepped forward, consulting his tablet. The ritual combat will proceed according to traditional Krillian rules, modified for the physical differences between species. Combat continues until first blood is drawn, one participant yields, or medical intervention is required. No strikes to vital organs or permanent maiming are permitted. Both warriors fight with honor, seeking not to destroy but to test. Dr. Martinez, the senior medical officer, added his own statement. Medical monitoring is active for both participants. Heart rate, stress indicators, and injury detection are being tracked in real time. We will intervene immediately if either warrior is in genuine danger. Sarah drew her monomolecular blade, feeling its familiar weight in her hand. The weapon was a masterpiece of human engineering, its edge maintained at the molecular level to cut through almost any material. Across from her, Zethkar's twin blades hummed with energy, their alien technology creating a low harmonic that seemed to vibrate through the deck plates. "Begin when ready," Ambassador Rodriguez announced, backing away to give them room. For a moment, neither warrior moved. They circled each other slowly, each taking the measure of their opponent. Sarah had studied everything available about Krillian combat techniques, but there was a vast difference between watching recordings and facing 3 meters of armored alien warrior in person. Zethkar moved first, a lightning-fast strike with its primary right blade that Sarah barely managed to parry. The impact sent shock waves up her arm, and she realized immediately that she couldn't match the Krillian's raw strength. She would have to rely on speed, technique, and hopefully superior endurance. The Warsinger followed up with a complex attack pattern, all 4 arms moving in coordination to strike from multiple angles simultaneously. Sarah found herself giving ground rapidly. Her blade work focused entirely on defense, as she tried to adapt to fighting an opponent with twice as many weapons as she was used to. A strike from Zethkar's secondary left hand slipped through her guard and scraped across her armor, leaving a shallow gouge but no actual injury. Sarah spun away and counterattacked, her blade seeking the gaps in the alien's armor. Her strike connected, scoring a line across Zethkar's upper arm that drew a thin trickle of blood. Both warriors stepped back, breathing heavily. According to the rules, first blood had been drawn, but Zethkar made no move to yield. Instead, the Warsinger's mandibles clicked in what Sarah was learning to recognize as approval. "Well struck, human warrior." But the first touch is merely the opening movement. The dance continues until one of us can no longer stand. Sarah realized this wasn't going to be the brief, ceremonial encounter she had hoped for. This was real combat, with real stakes, and Zethkar was testing her limits as much as forming any symbolic bond. They engaged again, and this time Sarah was ready for the Krillian's multi-limbed assault. She had noticed during the first exchange that while Zethkar could attack with all 4 arms simultaneously, doing so created brief moments where its defense was less coordinated. Human military doctrine emphasized exploiting such weaknesses. Sarah began to fight more aggressively, using her superior mobility to stay inside the Krillian's reach where its longer arms became less effective. She scored several more minor hits, drawing blood from the Warsinger's flank and shoulder. In return, Zethkar managed to land strikes that left her armor scarred and her left shoulder aching. The combat continued for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Sarah's training in multiple martial arts served her well, allowing her to mix techniques that Zethkar couldn't predict. She used thrown dirt to momentarily blind the alien, grappled with its lower arms to disable 2 of its weapons, and even managed to briefly get behind its guard for a potentially decisive strike. But Zethkar was a master of its own fighting style, and gradually Sarah began to understand why the Krillians were so feared in combat. The Warsinger's endurance was better than expected, its strength was overwhelming when properly applied, and its tactical awareness was exceptional. Every mistake Sarah made was immediately punished. Every opening she created was expertly exploited. The turning point came when Sarah attempted a particularly risky maneuver, trying to disarm one of Zethkar's primary weapons. The Warsinger anticipated the move and trapped her blade between 2 of its own, then used its overwhelming strength to wrench her weapon from her grip. Sarah found herself facing an alien warrior with 4 blades, while she was completely unarmed. The smart tactical decision would have been to yield immediately. But something in Zethkar's compound eyes told her that the real test was just beginning. This wasn't about winning or losing anymore. It was about proving that she could face impossible odds without breaking. Sarah smiled grimly and raised her fists. "Is that all you've got, Warsinger?" Zethkar's mandibles clicked rapidly, alien laughter. "Now you begin to understand, human warrior. Combat is not about weapons or strength. It is about the fire that burns in the warrior's heart when all seems lost." The Warsinger attacked again, but this time Sarah noticed something different. The strikes were still powerful and precise, but they were no longer aimed to injure. Zethkar was testing her resolve, her ability to continue fighting even when victory was impossible. Sarah dodged and weaved, using the environment to her advantage. She grabbed a piece of loose equipment to use as an improvised weapon, rolled under attack patterns, and even managed to land a few punches on the Krillian's armored form. Her knuckles split against the alien's exoskeleton, but she kept fighting. Finally, exhaustion began to take its toll. Sarah's movements became sluggish, her breathing labored. A complex strike from Zethkar sent her tumbling across the deck, and she struggled to regain her feet. Blood from minor cuts obscured her vision, and her entire body ached from the sustained combat. Zethkar stood over her, all four blades pointed downward but not moving to strike. "Do you yield, human warrior?" Sarah looked up at the towering alien, at the weapons that could end her life with a single movement, at the compound eyes that seemed to be weighing her very soul. She thought about the mining station crew counting on her, about the potential for war if this ceremony failed, about every person she'd sworn to protect. "No," she said simply. "I don't yield." The war singer stepped back and raised all four arms in a gesture of profound respect. "Then, the bond is forged in truth, warrior Sarah Chun. You have shown the fire that burns in the human spirit, the refusal to surrender even when victory is impossible. This is the strength that makes your species worthy allies rather than mere enemies." Zethkar resheathed its weapons and extended one massive hand to help Sarah to her feet. As she grasped the alien's arm, she felt a strange sense of completion, as if something that had been missing from the universe had finally clicked into place. "The warrior bond is sealed," Zethkar announced to the watching crowd. "Let it be recorded that human and Krillian warriors have fought with honor and found each other worthy. Let all who serve in our fleets know that we are no longer enemies, but companions in the endless war against chaos and darkness." Ambassador Rodriguez stepped forward, his face showing a mixture of relief and awe. "This ceremony will be transmitted to both our governments. Lieutenant Shun, what you've accomplished here today may have changed the course of galactic history." But Sarah was looking at Zethkar, seeing something in the alien warrior's posture that the others had missed. "War Singer, you're hurt." Indeed, closer examination revealed that the Krillian's breathing was labored, and several of its scars were bleeding more than they should be from the relatively minor combat they had just completed. Zethkar's condition was worse than it had let on. "The warrior cycle ends as it must," Zethkar said calmly. "But it ends with honor intact and alliance secured. Thakmor will not be able to argue against a bond witnessed by both our peoples." Dr. Martinez rushed forward with his medical team, but Zethkar waved them away. "Human healing arts cannot help me now. My time was measured in days before this ceremony began. I have used what remained to forge something that will outlast my life." Sarah felt a strange mix of sorrow and privilege. She had been chosen not just to fight an alien warrior, but to be present for the final act of a life dedicated to service and honor. It was both humbling and inspiring. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now, the real work begins. The bond must be maintained, strengthened, and expanded. You have become something unprecedented, a human war singer in the eyes of my people. That title comes with both honor and responsibility." As medical teams attended to both warriors, Sarah realized that the combat in the cargo bay had been only the beginning. The real challenge would be living up to the expectations of two species who had just witnessed their ancient enemies perform a ritual of mutual respect and alliance. The warrior bond was forged, but now it had to be proven worthy of the faith placed in it. 3 days after the warrior bond ceremony, Sarah stood on the observation deck watching the massive Krillian dreadnought begin its departure sequence. The ship's running lights painted geometric patterns against the darkness of space as its engines slowly brought it to life. Warsinger Zethkar was aboard, returning to face whatever judgment awaited him from his own people. The ceremony had been broadcast across both human and Krillian space, creating ripple effects that were still unfolding. Sarah's communication panel showed dozens of pending messages from military officials, diplomats, and news organizations, all wanting to understand what had happened and what it meant for the future. "Regretting your decision?" Commander Walsh asked, joining Sarah at the observation window. "No," Sarah replied without hesitation. "But I'm wondering what comes next." Zethkar made it clear that this was just the beginning, but he didn't exactly leave me with an instruction manual for being a human war singer. Walsh studied the departing ship. "I've been reading the intelligence reports coming in from Krillian space. Your little ceremony has caused quite a stir. There are riots on some of their military worlds, but there are also public demonstrations supporting the alliance. Their society is more divided than we thought." Sarah's comm unit chimed with an incoming priority transmission. The identifier showed it was coming from the departing Krillian ship. She accepted the link, and Zethkar's translated voice filled the observation deck. Warrior Sarah Chun, I want to speak with you one final time before departing. How are you feeling, War Singer? Sarah asked, concerned about the alien's deteriorating condition. Weak in body, but strong in spirit. The bond we forged has already begun to bear fruit. I have received communications from 17 war singers across the fleet expressing interest in similar alliances with human military units. Not all of my people supported Thakmor's aggressive stance, but they needed to see that an alternative was possible. Sarah felt a surge of hope. That's more support than you expected? Much more. It appears that many warriors were uncomfortable with the path toward renewed conflict, but felt they had no choice. Your demonstration of human courage and honor has given them that choice. Zethkar paused, and when he continued, his voice carried a note of urgency. But you should know that Thakmor has not been idle. He has accelerated his timeline for military action. Intelligence suggests he plans to attack several human outposts within the next 10 standard days, hoping to provoke a response that will justify full-scale war. The news hit Sarah like a physical blow. Which outposts? The mining facility at Vega 7, the research station at Proxima Centauri, and another pause. Your current position. Kepler 442 represents everything Thakmor despises about human Krillian cooperation. He will want to destroy it as a symbol. Commander Walsh stepped closer to the comm unit. War Singer, what kind of force is he likely to deploy? 3 battle groups, each consisting of 2 heavy cruisers and their escort squadrons. Perhaps 60 ships total, with enough firepower to overwhelm your defenses completely. Sarah's mind raced through the tactical implications. Mining Station Kepler 442 had defensive platforms designed to deter raiders, not military fleets. Even with the small task force Admiral Harrison had positioned in the outer system, they would be massively outgunned. Is there anything we can do to prevent the attack? She asked. Perhaps. The warrior bond we forged carries significant cultural weight, but only if it is properly leveraged. Thakmor's support among the war singers is not unanimous. If enough of them refuse to participate in his aggressive actions, he may be forced to reconsider. What would it take to convince them? Direct communication, warrior to warrior. You now hold the rank of war singer in the eyes of my people, which means your words carry weight in our military councils. But such communication would require you to travel to Krillian space and address the fleet commanders in person. Sarah felt her breath catch. The idea of traveling deep into enemy territory to address alien military leaders was both terrifying and intriguing. Would they listen to me? Some would. Others would try to kill you for the honor of defeating a human war singer in combat. It would be extremely dangerous, but it might be the only way to prevent the war Thakmor desires. Commander Walsh grabbed Sarah's arm. Lieutenant, you can't seriously be considering this. It's a suicide mission. Before Sarah could respond, her comm unit chimed again with another incoming transmission. This one was from Admiral Harrison aboard the TDF Yorktown, which had just arrived in the outer system. Lieutenant Chun, we've been monitoring your communication with the Krillian ship. I need you to report to the Yorktown immediately for briefing. We have some new intelligence that changes the tactical situation significantly. Sarah acknowledged the transmission and turned back to the Krillian channel. War Singer Zethkar, I need to consult with my superiors before making any decisions. Can you delay your departure for a few hours? I'm afraid not. Thakmor supporters are monitoring my movements closely, and any delay would be seen as further evidence of collaboration with humans. But know this, Warrior Sarah Chun. Whatever path you choose, you have already accomplished something remarkable. The alliance between our peoples is no longer just a dream. It is a reality that will outlast both of us. The transmission ended, leaving Sarah staring at the departing dreadnought as it accelerated toward the system's edge. Within minutes, it would jump to hyperspace and begin its journey back to the heart of Krillian territory. The shuttle trip to the Yorktown gave Sarah time to think about everything that had happened since the War Singer's arrival. In less than a week, her life had been completely transformed. She was no longer just a station security chief. She was apparently a key figure in preventing an interstellar war. Admiral Harrison met her at the shuttle bay, his weathered face showing the strain of the developing crisis. Lieutenant Chun, welcome aboard. I need to brief you on some developments that occurred while you were fighting your alien friend. They made their way to the ship's intelligence center, where holographic displays showed the current positions of human and Krillian fleets throughout the border regions. Sarah was shocked to see how many red icons representing potentially hostile forces were moving toward human space. "Thakmor's been busy," Admiral Harrison said grimly. "Our intelligence assets report that he's managed to gain control of approximately 40% of the Krillian battle fleet. The good news is that means 60% are either neutral or actively opposed to his agenda." "What's our response going to be?" Sarah asked. "That depends partly on you, Lieutenant. Your warrior bond ceremony has created some unprecedented opportunities for diplomatic intervention, but it's also made you a target for Krillian hardliners who see you as a symbol of human influence over their culture." Intelligence Officer Captain Martinez pulled up detailed fleet deployment charts. "We've identified the locations of several war singers who have publicly expressed support for the Alliance. If we could coordinate with them, we might be able to create a unified opposition to Thakmor's war plans." Sarah studied the tactical displays. "Zethkar suggested that I could address the Krillian fleet commanders directly, using my status as a war singer to argue against the attacks. But that would require traveling into Krillian space." "Which is exactly what we're proposing," Admiral Harrison said. "It's risky as hell, but our tactical analysis suggests it's our best chance of preventing a full-scale war." "How would it work?" Captain Martinez activated another display showing hyperspace routes and fleet positions. "We've identified a Krillian fleet assembly point at the Rigel Nebula, where several war singers are gathering to discuss Thakmor's proposals. If we could get you there during their war council, you might be able to influence their decision." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. "What kind of support would I have?" "Minimal, by necessity," Admiral Harrison admitted. "One fast courier ship with a small diplomatic team. Any larger force would be seen as an invasion and would undermine your message of peaceful cooperation. And if I'm captured or killed, then we fall back to conventional military responses and hope we can win the war that follows." The Admiral's expression was grim. "I won't lie to you, Lieutenant. This is the most dangerous mission we've ever asked anyone to undertake. You'd be going into the heart of enemy territory with no backup and no guaranteed safe passage." Sarah thought about the mining station crew, about the thousands of civilians who would die if the border conflicts escalated into full warfare, about the unprecedented opportunity to forge a lasting alliance between two warrior species. "When would I leave?" she asked. Admiral Harrison looked surprised. "You're accepting the mission?" War singer Zethkar risked his life and career to create this opportunity. "The least I can do is see it through." Sarah paused, thinking through the implications. "But I'll need to prepare carefully. If I'm going to address Krillian military commanders as an equal, I need to understand their culture and protocols better than I do now." "Agreed. We're transferring Dr. Vasquez and her entire xenoanthropology team to assist with your preparation. You'll also have access to our best intelligence on Krillian fleet structure and command hierarchy." Captain Martinez brought up another display showing the proposed timeline. "The Krillian War Council is scheduled to begin in 6 standard days. That gives us time to get you to the assembly point and for you to prepare your presentation." "What about the defense of Kepler?" 442. Sarah asked. "If Thakmor decides to attack while I'm gone, we're reinforcing the station's defenses and positioning additional fleet units in the area. Commander Walsh will coordinate the defensive preparations." Admiral Harrison's expression softened slightly. "Lieutenant, I want you to understand something. What you did during that warrior bond ceremony was remarkable, but this mission is on a completely different level. You'll be walking into a room full of alien warriors, any one of whom could challenge you to single combat at any moment, and try to convince them that peace is preferable to war." Sarah smiled grimly. "Admiral, with respect, that's what I signed up for when I joined the military. Besides, I've already fought one Krillian warrior and survived. How much harder could it be to fight 60 of them?" Admiral Harrison chuckled despite the gravity of the situation. "Lieutenant, either you're the bravest person I've ever met, or you're completely insane." "Probably both," Sarah admitted. "But if there's a chance I can prevent a war, I have to take it." The next few days passed in a blur of intensive preparation. Dr. Vasquez and her team briefed Sarah on every aspect of Krillian culture they could think of, from military rank structures to religious beliefs to dietary customs. She learned that the War Council would follow ancient protocols dating back thousands of years, with specific rituals for presenting arguments and challenging decisions. Most importantly, she learned that her status as a human war singer was both an asset and a liability. While it gave her the right to speak at the council, it also made her a legitimate target for any Krillian who wanted to prove their worth by defeating her in combat. The key is to project strength without appearing aggressive, Dr. Vasquez explained during one of their sessions. Krillians respect courage and conviction, but they also have complex honor codes about when violence is appropriate. If you can present your case as a warrior seeking to prevent unnecessary bloodshed, rather than a diplomat trying to avoid conflict, you'll have better credibility. Sarah practiced her presentation repeatedly, working to strike the right balance between human diplomatic language and Krillian concepts of honor and duty. She also spent hours in the ship's gym, maintaining her physical conditioning and working with combat instructors to improve her fighting techniques. If she was challenged to single combat again, she wanted to be ready. The night before her departure, Sarah found herself back on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. Tomorrow she would travel deeper into alien territory than any human had ever gone, carrying the hopes of both species on her shoulders. Commander Walsh found her there, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this," she said, handing one to Sarah. "Thanks. Couldn't sleep anyway." Second thoughts. Sarah considered the question seriously. No, not second thoughts. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared. I'm about to walk into a room full of 3-meter-tall alien warriors and try to convince them not to start a war. The odds of success are not great, but you're going anyway. I'm going anyway. Sarah sipped her coffee and watched a transport ship move slowly across their field of view. You know what the strangest part is? I keep thinking about what Zethkar said about warriors recognizing warriors. Despite everything, the physical differences, the cultural barriers, the language problems, I felt like he and I understood each other in a way that transcended all of that. Maybe that's what this is really about, Walsh suggested. Not politics or military strategy, but the recognition that some things are universal. Courage, honor, the willingness to sacrifice for something greater than yourself. Sarah nodded slowly. If that's true, then maybe there's hope after all. Maybe the differences between our species aren't as important as the things we have in common. The next morning, Sarah boarded the courier ship Hermes for the journey to Krillian space. As the small vessel jumped to hyperspace, carrying her toward an uncertain fate, she thought about the warrior bond she had forged with Zethkar and the responsibility that came with it. She was no longer fighting just for humanity. She was fighting for the possibility that 2 warrior species could find a better path than endless conflict. Whether she succeeded or failed, she would face the challenge with the honor befitting a true war singer. The Rigel Nebula was a masterpiece of cosmic beauty that took Sarah's breath away. Swirling clouds of gas and stellar dust painted the darkness in shades of purple, gold, and electric blue, while newborn stars flickered like jewels scattered across velvet. Hidden within this stellar nursery, the Krillian War Council was assembling for what could be the most important military conference in their species' history. The courier ship Hermes dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the nebula, its sensors immediately detecting dozens of Krillian warships positioned throughout the gas clouds. Captain Torres, the ship's commanding officer, studied the tactical display with obvious concern. "I count at least 40 vessels, Lieutenant," he reported. "Everything from scout ships to heavy battle cruisers. If this goes badly, we won't make it out of the system." Sarah nodded, feeling the familiar mix of fear and determination that preceded every dangerous mission. "Have they responded to our transmission?" "Yes, ma'am. We've been assigned an escort to the council station. 2 Krillian destroyers are moving to intercept us now." Through the bridge windows, Sarah watched the alien escorts approach. The ships were sleek and predatory, their dark hulls seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. Energy patterns danced along their weapon arrays, a not-so-subtle reminder that the Hermes was completely at their mercy. Dr. Vasquez joined Sarah at the observation station, her tablet displaying the latest cultural briefing materials. "Remember, Lieutenant, the first few minutes will be crucial. How you present yourself when you board the council station will set the tone for everything that follows. Full ceremonial armor, direct eye contact with the senior war singers, and I speak only when formally recognized," Sarah recited. "And if anyone challenges me to single combat, I accept immediately to demonstrate courage." "Exactly. And remember, you're not just representing humanity now. You're acting as a war singer, which means the other council members will expect you to speak with the authority of someone who has commanded troops in battle. The escort ships guided them through the nebula's twisting passages, past stellar phenomena that would have been breathtaking under other circumstances. Finally, they emerged into a clear pocket of space where the council station waited. The structure was massive, easily the size of a small moon, with architecture that somehow managed to be both elegant and intimidating. Weapon platforms studded its surface, and docking bays large enough to accommodate capital ships dotted its equator. "My God," Captain Torres whispered. "How long has this thing been here?" "According to our intelligence, it's a mobile command center that the Krillians use for major fleet conferences," Dr. Vasquez replied. "It can house up to 50,000 personnel and maintain a fleet of hundreds of ships." Sarah felt a chill as the implication sank in. This wasn't just a diplomatic meeting. It was a gathering of the entire Krillian military leadership. The decisions made here would affect the fate of both species for generations to come. The docking procedure was conducted with military precision. Sarah, wearing her ceremonial armor and carrying the monomolecular blade that had served her well in the warrior bond ceremony, was escorted by an honor guard of Krillian warriors to the station's main conference chamber. The corridors were vast, designed to accommodate beings much larger than humans, and decorated with murals depicting thousands of years of Krillian military history. The conference chamber itself was awe-inspiring. A circular amphitheater with tiered seating rose from a central speaking area, and every seat was occupied by a Krillian warrior in full ceremonial regalia. The air hummed with tension and the weight of accumulated military experience. At the center of the highest tier sat war singer Thakmor, and Sarah felt her blood chill as she got her first look at Zethkar's rival. Where Zethkar had carried himself with the dignity of a veteran warrior, Thakmor radiated barely contained aggression. His armor was more elaborate, his weapons more prominently displayed, and his posture spoke of someone accustomed to being the most dangerous being in any room. Sarah was escorted to a designated speaking position in the center of the amphitheater. As she took her place, the assembled war singers studied her with the intensity of predators evaluating potential prey. She forced herself to stand straight and meet their gazes directly, remembering Dr. Vasquez's warnings about showing any sign of weakness. War singer Thakmor rose from his seat, his voice carrying easily across the chamber without any need for amplification. "Assembled warriors of the Krillian Empire, we gather to discuss the future of our people and our relationship with the human species. Before us stands one who claims the title of war singer despite her alien origin. Let her speak, so that all may judge the worth of her words." Sarah stepped forward, feeling the weight of hundreds of alien gazes upon her. This was it, the moment that would determine whether peace was possible or if war was inevitable. "War singers of the Krillian Empire," she began, her voice carrying clearly in the vast chamber. "I am Sarah Chun, bearer of the warrior bond forged with war singer Zethkar, defender of human space, and now, by your customs and traditions, a war singer myself. I come before you not as a supplicant or diplomat, but as a warrior who has faced death in defense of her people and seeks to prevent unnecessary bloodshed between our species." A ripple of movement passed through the assembled warriors. Some leaned forward with interest, while others made gestures that Sarah interpreted as skeptical or hostile. She continued, drawing on everything she had learned about Krillian culture and values. "I have studied your military history, your concepts of honor and duty, your understanding of what it means to be a true warrior. In many ways, our species share the same core values. We both believe that strength must be proven through action, that courage in the face of overwhelming odds is the highest virtue, and that a warrior's duty is to protect those who cannot protect themselves." War singer Thakmor interrupted, his voice cutting across the chamber like a blade. "Pretty words, human. But words are worthless without the strength to back them up. You speak of shared values, but humans are weak. You value individual lives over military necessity. You negotiate when you should attack. You show mercy when victory demands ruthlessness." Sarah felt the challenge in his words and responded accordingly. "War singer Thakmor, you mistake tactical flexibility for weakness. Humans have conquered more star systems in the past century than the Krillian Empire has in the past 5. We have defeated enemies that outnumbered us 10 to 1 through superior strategy and unbreakable will. Our weakness has made us the dominant species in 3-star sectors. The chamber erupted in clicks and harmonics as the assembled war singers reacted to her bold statement. Sarah pressed on, knowing she had to maintain the initiative. But, more than that, humans understand something that pure military aggression cannot achieve. We understand that the strongest alliance is not one forged through conquest, but one built on mutual respect between equals. When humans and Krillians fight together instead of against each other, we become a force that no enemy in the galaxy can stand against. A new voice spoke from the tiered seating. Warsinger Corveth, whom Dr. Vasquez had identified as a moderate faction leader. You speak of alliance, human war singer, but alliance requires trust. How can we trust a species that has shown mercy to pirates and criminals? How can we respect warriors who hesitate to strike the killing blow? Sarah had expected this question and was ready with her answer. Warsinger Corveth, mercy is not weakness when it serves a strategic purpose. Every enemy we spare becomes a witness to human strength and honor. Every act of mercy we show makes our eventual enemies hesitate, wondering if they too might be spared if they surrender. This psychological advantage has won us battles before they were even fought. She paused, letting her words sink in. But, more importantly, the ability to show mercy when appropriate is what separates true warriors from mere killers. Any fool can destroy an enemy. It takes real strength to turn an enemy into an ally. Warsinger Thakmore rose again, his posture clearly aggressive. Enough philosophy. You claim to be a warrior, human, but you have faced only one Krillian in combat. A dying old warrior whose strength had already failed him. How can you speak for the strength of your species when you have not proven yourself against a warrior in his prime? The challenge was unmistakable, and Sarah felt the attention of the entire chamber focus on her response. Everything Dr. Vasquez had taught her about Krillian culture screamed that this was a pivotal moment. How she handled Thakmore's challenge would determine not just her own credibility, but the future of human-Krillian relations. Warsinger Thakmore, she said, her voice carrying clearly across the chamber. Are you challenging me to single combat? I am. The simple declaration sent a wave of excitement through the assembled warriors. Sarah realized that this had been inevitable from the moment she set foot on the station. Thakmore couldn't allow her to address the council without testing her personally. I accept your challenge, Sarah replied without hesitation. What terms do you propose? Thakmore's mandibles clicked with what sounded like satisfaction. Traditional combat. Weapons of choice. The victor speaks for their species' position on future relations. Sarah nodded, understanding the stakes. If she won, her words about alliance and cooperation would carry the weight of victory. If she lost, Thakmore's vision of conquest would be validated in the eyes of the assembled war singers. Agreed. When do we fight? Now. The center of the chamber quickly transformed into an arena as the war singers arranged themselves for optimal viewing. Sarah found herself facing an opponent who was even more formidable than Zethkar had been. Thakmore was younger, stronger, and filled with aggressive energy that seemed to radiate from his very being. But Sarah had learned from her previous encounter. She understood now that Krillian combat was as much about mental fortitude as physical skill. The warrior who could maintain focus and determination under pressure would have a significant advantage. Thakmore drew two massive energy weapons, their blades crackling with destructive power. Sarah responded by drawing her monomolecular sword, its simple elegance a stark contrast to the alien technology arrayed against her. Last chance to yield, human, Thakmore said, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. Warriors don't yield, Sarah replied. They adapt and overcome. The combat began with explosive violence as Thakmore launched himself forward with frightening speed. Sarah barely managed to dodge his initial strike, feeling the heat from his energy blades as they passed inches from her armor. She rolled aside and came up in a defensive stance, already analyzing her opponent's fighting style. Thakmore was everything Zethkar had been and more. Faster, stronger, more aggressive, and completely confident in his abilities. But Sarah began to notice patterns in his attacks. The Krillian was used to overwhelming his opponents through sheer force, which meant he sometimes sacrificed precision for power. The fight continued with Sarah giving ground steadily, using every technique she had learned from her previous combat with Zethkar. She stayed inside Thakmore's reach when possible, used her superior agility to avoid his most devastating strikes, and looked for opportunities to exploit the brief openings created by his aggressive style. But Thakmore was learning too, adapting to her tactics, and closing off her options. A devastating combination attack drove her back against the chamber wall, and one of his energy blades scored a direct hit on her armor, leaving a burning gouge across her chest plate. Sarah realized she was losing. Thakmore was simply too strong, too fast, and too skilled for her to defeat through conventional means. She needed something unexpected, some advantage he wouldn't see coming. The answer came to her as she watched him prepare for what was clearly intended to be a finishing move. Thakmore's confidence had made him predictable. He was so certain of victory that he was taking unnecessary risks to make the combat more impressive for the watching war singers. Sarah feinted a defensive move, drawing Thakmore into an overextended attack. Then did something no Krillian warrior would ever expect. She dropped her weapon and grappled with him directly, using her smaller size and lower center of gravity to unbalance the massive alien warrior. The chamber erupted in shocked harmonics as human and Krillian crashed to the floor in a tangle of limbs. Sarah used every dirty fighting technique she had ever learned, striking pressure points, using leverage to maximum advantage, and exploiting the fact that Thakmore's elaborate armor actually restricted his movement in close quarters. For several moments, they struggled on the arena floor, neither able to gain a decisive advantage. Then, Sarah managed to get behind Thakmore and applied a chokehold that cut off blood flow to his brain. The Krillian thrashed desperately, but Sarah held on with grim determination, knowing this was her only chance. Finally, Teach,